So we're out doing some leash walking and public exposure here. So we're downtown Osoyoos. It's like moderately busy, and there's lots of new things to smell. And we just went into the home hardware, and he did really well. So one important thing that I'm doing is I don't want him getting patted by a bunch of strangers, because he's quite friendly, and I don't want him to get distracted and thinking that it's okay to pull and say hi to people constantly. So when people say, oh, that's a cute puppy, I just say thanks, and then I don't let them pat him. And it's going really well. So he's starting to ignore people. I've been doing that ever since I got him. So he's been starting to ignore people a little more, and he sometimes will pull towards people. Good boy. But he gives up really easily. And when he does, so anytime he pulls ahead of me, I just stop and encourage him to come back. Good boy. It's just going to stop his leash pulling, right? We don't want him to be dragging on leash. So anytime you feel pressure at the end of the leash, like he hits the end, you have a couple of options. You dropped a little, didn't you? So if he hits the end, good boy. If he makes a little stop like that and is like, oh, thinking about treats, that's what we want. We want him going to go ahead and then stopping and coming back on his own. Good boy. There we go. Good boy. So there's a person coming. Yeah.
Super cute.
So what I'm doing is when people pass, you see I'm just putting food in front of his face here. That lady was like, oh, cute puppy, la la la. So I just don't want him to be, good boy. I don't want him to be going up to people and thinking that they're going to pat him, which they are, if you let them. So, and he's going to get the wrong idea about what is appropriate for being out and about. It's not about going out and seeing people. It's about walking and ignoring them and learning to walk on leash. That's the point of our walks right now. So I let him stop and have sniffs. But if he goes ahead, that's where I was at, got interrupted there. So if he goes ahead and hits the end of the leash, I stop walking and back up a little and encourage him to come back into position and give him a treat when he gets there. Or I'll just change direction and turn around and walk the other way. So we'll be walking. Good boy.
Good boy.
There's another person there, so I just gave him a treat. Walking. Being a good boy. Walking. He's doing really well right now. Good boy. So if he's going to hit the end, I'm just going to turn around and I'm going to do a 180 and just start walking the other direction. He's having a little sniffle. So that's another way that you communicate to him that when you get ahead and go too far, good boy. Good job. That the walk changes direction, so going to the end of the leash is kind of pointless. Good boy. Good puppy. Good job, buddy. Smart puppy. So I'm also just noticed that I'm also just feeding him only on the left. So I like to pick a side. Left doesn't really matter which side. Left is traditional, so that's what I'm teaching him. To stay on one side of you. So that means, like, my feet are here. There's a line going across the middle of my body, and if he crosses it, I will stop walking and encourage him to come back over to this side. Same behind. So if he crosses behind me, I'll just put a little pressure on the leash just to encourage him to come back onto this side, so I don't let him walk on the right side. And what I like to do is kind of draw an invisible box. So my feet are here. He can go up to here. He can go here. He can go here. And he can go behind in a little box. And if he leaves that box, then I either stop walking or I change and go the opposite direction of where he's pulling. Oh, boy. So that's just teaching him where you want him to be during walks. Let's go. Good boy. Well done, buddy. So he's a puppy. He kind of stepped in front of my feet there when I stopped, but that's okay. So I'm feeding him lots of treats, and I recommend doing lots of treats while you're working on your leash walking, because this is something that people struggle with for their dog's entire life. So we want to set a really good foundation here So you're not going to skimp out on the treats. You're going to slowly decrease them over time. So if he's doing a good job and he's walking nice and you're not having to worry about him hitting the end and he's focused, good boy, then you can start to do the treats a little less often. But don't concern yourself about when to get rid of treats until he's at least a year old. I would bring them out every time so that you can reinforce good behaviors. I'm putting a little pressure on the leash. He went behind me. There was someone there. Good boy. So he's learning to ignore people and he's learning not to pull. Two things at the same time. Good boy, this way. Good job. So when we start walking from a stop, I say, let's go. And I do that off leash too. And if I change direction on him, I'm going to make one of those 180 turns. I'll say, oh, he's gone to the wrong side. See, he's over here. Leash is wrapped around me. So I'm just going to use a treat to show him that I want him to come back around. And I'll bring him around to the other side like that. Good boy. There we go. There's some people walking past here. He's being very good. He stayed in that sitting position. Good boy. And if I change direction, let's go. Good boy. And if I'm going to make a 180, I say this way. Good boy. So that he doesn't hit the leash at the other side. Good boy. So I don't want him to get a big leash correction when I change direction. It's not about him getting hit at the end of the leash. It's about him. It's about him just learning not to hit the end, and that I'm important at the other end of the leash. It's not about where he's going. It's about where I'm going. Good boy. Down. You can do it. I know it's hard without barking. Down. Good boy. And I have his down just on a verbal cue, but sometimes, because he's still working on it, he does that little bark. So we'll try and fade that, but I'm sure it won't be there forever, hopefully. It's a little frustrated bark because he's not 100% sure. I'm not giving him a hand signal. I'm just doing it on a verbal cue. Good boy. Okay, all done.